To unpack the national crime figures, we're now joined by Professor Kholofelo Rakubu, and she joins us now via our video link. Kholofelo, thank you so much for your time this evening here in SABC News. I mean, let's begin here. What do you make of the crime stats we saw being released by the Minister earlier?
Good evening, and thank you for having me. Devastating like ever before. They are not surprising because there has been a trend, there has been a pattern. The previous crime stats have been revealing status quo, and hence we are not shocked as to why they are the way they are. So what is just frustrating is the fact that this now becomes a reflection. This now becomes a norm to just come tell us that you do not recognize that the meaning of crime stats is to assist you reflect on the current mechanisms as to whether they are working or not. So the current numbers are clearly indicating whatever we put on the table to deal with crime is not working. So now this calls for, I see in Cape Town, they are talking of crime as a national priority. That should have been, all provinces should be looking at crime as a national priority. This is the time when now we should revisit all policies in place, because the current status quo clearly tells us we have policy issue, we have political issue in dealing with crime. We also have leadership issue as well as strategy issue. So we cannot making it a norm to come and share devastating news and frustration that we are not winning the battle against crime. Come and tell us, since we know we are not winning, this is the shift, a paradigm in which we have adopted, or this is the way in which we are going to deal with crime for what it is, because there's nothing new that we had today.
Yeah.
We're just hearing that criminals still have more powers, criminals are still at peace in South Africa, everybody's doing whatever they want to do, because as they weigh cost versus benefits, there's more benefits in commission of crime.
And of course, you speak a lot about this not being a surprise, really. And when you look at the contact crime figures, one would say that when you look at the number of reports we have seen in contact crime, really no surprise, they're increasing by 3,831 from 149,000 to 153,000. Surely a major concern when it comes to contact crimes.
Major concern, but let's also recognize the fact that that number might not be a true reflection of the status quo of the ground or of the crime landscape. Remember, South Africa still has issues with poor crime reporting due to long-standing issues in the justice system. So I'm sure with that number, there are multiple victims that decided not to subject themselves to re-victimization because of issues in the justice system, the police having issues with the resources, and at the end of the day, offenders being left free to roam around and victimize more other community members. So it's not clear, it's not always a true reflection because of the decision not to report. I always appreciate the crime, the victim surveys, because in that we're dealing with victims. However, here, it's those that have been recorded, right? There are many that have not seen the light of day, and that does not take away the fact that there is a victim somewhere that will never get justice.
Something that, Professor, a number of media houses have been dealing with really in the recent past is the issue around extortions. And of course, when it comes to, these matters being reported, it seemed as if police, this has been reported for quite some time, but they have not been coming to the fore in trying to deal with the extortions in this country. What is your take on that?
How do they get to deal with extortions when we still have issues with police-community ratio? The number of officials on the ground is not sufficient enough to deal with other emanating crimes. So extortion comes in as a secondary crime or opportunistic crime that is flourishing because there are other crimes. We talk of GBV that has been in the field for quite some time. Where do we get resources and power to deal with extortion? We still have issues with corruption in the system, intimidation as well, and also other legislative hindrances that are affecting police response, right? So extortion comes into flourish because there's no, we've got issues with intelligence for that matter. So now they come in, they study the environment, and they understand they can flourish because other crimes are flourishing. So extortion, now they're talking of a specialized unit. We wish to understand to what the magnitude of intelligence. Do they understand magnitude of intelligence that is required here? Because they have been mentioning visibility. I'm sure that we're going to continue with patrol, but that should be supplemented by effective intelligence. Then urgent attention is required in that field, because we will need technology to deal with this. We'll need resources and what current innovative resources to deal with crime, because it has evolved. They no longer use mechanisms they used to use before. So that's why we are lagging behind, because criminals are a step ahead. But this one, the extortion, it will require a political will as well, power to take ownership as law enforcement, because with all other crimes, offenders, they still have a bit of power. But let's revive, let's work around revisiting intelligence strategy and making that intelligent bill into law, signing that into law, so that we can proceed efficiently. As much as we can mention intelligence, it's not going to work for us due to the current issues in intelligence. Remember, it has lost its grip at some point. It has its own issues since 2021 July unrest.
Right.
It's still positioned somewhere where it's not supposed to be positioned. So we need a directive with regard to whether they are reviewing or disbanding.
And Professor, before we run out of time, I mean, you spoke about this a bit earlier on, the issue around Cape Town and signing that the MOU, and of course this taking this different approach to how they will be dealing with crime. How important is this new strategy from the Western Cape government, national government, as well as the city of Cape Town?
That is very crucial, because they recognize the importance of community partnership. They even recognize the importance of cities, because cities are strategic. The cities are strategic in response to crime. Communities relate more with cities. So the city will have a thorough crime prevention strategy that has community in mind, communities they serve in mind. Obviously, in that there will be thorough community analysis to understand crime needs in that, or needs in that community, to be able to respond efficiently. The city understands the police alone cannot do it. They understand the powers that lies with what community leaders. So that is the direction South Africa is supposed to take, so that they can understand communities are very critical. We've lost trust in communities. There are disparities, there are confusion, there are clashes between the police and the community. So if we can start there and now identify critical stakeholders that should take lead in crime prevention, because the police cannot deal with issues of poverty or other psychological issues. So we need everybody on board. So the MOU should serve as a directive to other provinces, that now it is critical that you go back to communities and start on the ground, because communities are the ones, they know who commits crime at what time.
All right, Professor, thank you so much for that insight and for your time tonight. That is Professor Kholofelo Rakubu. She is a criminologist, giving us her insight there when it comes to the latest crime statistics, which we've seen being delivered and announced by the minister earlier today.